All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 4th virtual town hall for the Board of Education of Charles County. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, welcome again. I'm excited to see so many people online. I know we're also live streaming on our website, so thank you for joining us. Hopefully this virtual forum works well for families, especially those that may have some commuting challenges. So we're trying it out and we welcome feedback on that as well. So the topic this evening for the virtual town hall is on resources for parent engagement in schools. However, as always, you are welcome to address other topics that may be on your mind. We did receive some questions in advance, which Ms. Mackey can certainly address towards the end of the town hall. I am Yanel Morley. I'm the chairperson of the Board of Education, and I will introduce my board members, and then we will introduce our superintendent. So our vice chair is Ms. Nicole Kramer. Hello. Board members, Ms. Dottery Butler-Washington, Mr. David Hancock, and this is just the order I see you on my screen, Ms. Samisha Thomas, Ms. Jamila Smith, Dr. Latanya Smalls, Ms. Linda Warren. I saw Ms. Brenda Thomas. Oh, yes, Ms. Brenda Thomas is on. Our student board member, Mr. Sam Verk. Welcome. I believe that is everyone. Okay, and our superintendent, Dr. Maria Navarro. And I'll leave it to you, Dr. Navarro, to introduce your staff.
Good evening, board members and the community. Before I do any introductions, I just want to let our multilingual families know how to access the show caption. So I'm just going to switch to Spanish for 1 second and I'll be right back. Muy buenas noches de parte de la Junta Directiva de las Escuelas del Condado de Charles. Si usted necesita traducción, por favor vaya a la parte de abajo y escoja subtítulos, escoja traducciones, translation, y préndalo y escoja su idioma y podrá ver las traducciones simultáneas de este programa. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Ms. Morley. I am joined by several of my senior leadership team members who are here, and you will see them likely as there's a Q&A questions, but I wanted to highlight the two main presenters that we have this evening with us. Tracy Chapelier-Thomas and Christine Paul are our two superstars from the Office of Community Engagement and Equity, and they are here with their friends from ParentPowered, a national organization on parent engagement, to talk a little bit about the importance of parent engagement. I believe our friends from ParentPowered will do some of that at the beginning, and then Tracy and Christine will have the second part of our short presentation discuss for families how to navigate our school system, who to call for what. So with that, I will pass it on to Tracy. Thank you.
Dr. Navarro, and thank you all of our board members and everyone else in attendance. I'm Tracy Chapelier-Thomas, and I am the Director of Community Engagement and Equity. And as Dr. Navarro said, we are very excited tonight to have ParentPowered here to speak to you on the importance of parent engagement. I do want to let you know before we get started that both of the PowerPoints, ParentPowered PowerPoint and our PowerPoint presentation as well from the Department of Community Engagement and Equity will be available to you on the Parent tab of the CCPS website. So I would like to proudly introduce Weezy Huff and Rebecca Honet from ParentPowered, and they are going to take over. Weezy and Rebecca, thank you. You have sharing rights, so at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a green share, and you're able to navigate that way. Let me know if you need me. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Tracy. As she mentioned, my name is Weezy Howe. I am Director of Partnerships here at ParentPowered, and I lead our work with schools and districts nationally. For anyone not familiar with what ParentPowered is, we're an evidence-based family engagement curriculum. We're delivered via text message. And each week we really focus on delivering families messages that really break down the complexity of engaged parenting into really small, easy to achieve tips and strategies mapped directly onto a daily routine. Through our work with the Maryland and Pennsylvania statewide family engagement centers known as CAFE, we've had the opportunity to work with Christine and Tracy closely. And we're really excited and honored to be here tonight and for the opportunity to participate in the town hall. My colleague, Rebecca Honig, our Chief Content and Curriculum Officer, is going to walk us through some of the ways that family engagement works to boost academic outcomes. She's really going to focus a lot on what the evidence and research tells us about the effectiveness. And at the end, we'll have time for questions. We're also going to share some resources we've developed that are both for staff as well as families. So with that, I'm going to try to share now, and I'll let you take it away, Rebecca.
Okay, thank you to everyone for having us, and thank you, Wheezy, for introducing the show. I'm Rebecca Honig, as Wheezy mentioned. I'm the Chief of Content and Curriculum at ParentPowered, and I love talking about family engagement. I'll do it till the cows come home, so if y'all want to stick around, we can go late into the night. I think one of the things that is also just really exciting about being involved in family engagement right now in this moment in time is we're living through a time in which the definition of family engagement is really expanding and growing, right? We used to kind of define family engagement through acts of participation, right? We would ask families to do something, maybe come to a workshop or come participate in a bake sale. The model has really expanded. So now we look towards family partnership, right? How are we bringing parent voices to the table? How are we really engaging them in a strength-based way in their child's education, eliciting their voices and their feedback in terms of what they know about their child, and really leveraging their strengths to support holistically their learner and really invest in the school community. And when we look at family engagement through that lens, it really shifts what we need to do as schools and districts to truly engage parents, because now we're talking about the end goal being partnership. So we're focusing our attention far more on building a sense of belonging, on building trust with families, on finding opportunities to really leverage family voice, and really looking for new and innovative ways to just truly partner with families in service of their learner and the overarching school community and the community at large. So when we look at it through this lens, we see tremendous gains. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about what research says about the importance of family engagement, because it is a newer topic, and many of you may be in the position of kind of having to make the case for family engagement. So these statistics, we're hoping, will help you make the case for family engagement in your work. First and foremost, holistically, we know that 74% of student academic achievement is directly attributed to what is happening outside the school walls. I think anyone who works with children knows intuitively this to be true, but it is caregivers are critical drivers of that motivation. Also, parents play a critical role in their students' sense of self and their self-esteem and their overall feelings about their capacities and aspirations, which of course drives tremendous success within the classroom. I like to start with talking specific. Oh, we can go to the next slide and actually see some of the general messaging we have. So we're reaching families 3 times a week, right on their cell phones, with everyday ways to engage in their child's learning and development. and also how to engage within the complex systems of school, because it is deeply complex. And one of the things I just want to say about why we do it the way we do it is we are actually working to just build the habit of engagement. So we look at these as little nudges, same as you might get a nudge to like do your workout, or we're really just framing families' everyday moments as opportunities for engagement. And what we see is that over time, we see more holistic engagement overall. And we also see that families come to notice their own learning opportunities, things we're not even texting them about. So the first area that, and I know this is a huge topic right now in all of our lives, and we're seeing an attendance crisis, and we know that this is nationwide, has a critical impact on attendance. Students are more likely to attend school regularly when their families give the school high ratings on family engagement. Now, if we go to the next slide, it is no mystery why families have such a critical impact on attendance. So we tend to look at attendance, right? We talk about attendance as if it is a singular ask. Bring your child to school every day, or make sure they get on the bus. When we really look at everything involved in shepherding a child to school, in making school a place a child wants to go, in really breeding that motivation, it all rests on families. We did an experiment in our organization, and we were like, what does it take to support strong attendance, right? We've got to ensure that child is having their well visits. They have strong routines and they're getting enough rest at home so they're ready to go to school. We are making sure, right, that the child has the appropriate clothing, that the parent has filled out the forms, can access busing. It is a deeply complex system of supports that parents and caregivers have to offer. And every little circle here kind of rests on the shoulders of families. So the other thing we want to just name when we're talking about family engagement, and we ask families to do something, we really want to unpack the ask. What is actually involved in this thing that we are asking families to do? Because if we look at attendance alone, it is a complex system of supports. So we want to make sure when we're engaging families, and we'll talk more about this, that we're really scaffolding their engagement, that we're giving them support in all of these other areas, right? The social determinants of health, all the things that parents need in order to be able to show up every day, and all the things students need to learn at their best. Another, and you can just see some of our sample messages around attendance. And if you're familiar with the attendance work framework for moving the needle on attendance, you see family engagement lives right there, right in the center, as just the primary lever for positive change around attendance. And when we look at interventions that are working, many of them are related to family engagement, whether it's sending letters home to families about their child's attendance, texting them about attendance, providing them with critical resources to support strong attendance. We see the changes happening in the home when we're really supporting families. Okay, next up, we see holistic academic achievement as being greatly increased at greatly academic achievement boosting when we see strong family engagement. And the single greatest motivator of this, according to research, is something we refer to as academic socialization. So what are all the ways that parents and caregivers, and if we go to the next slide, we can see some messaging on this. What are all the ways that parents are communicating that school matters and helping students to see all the ways that it is relevant to them? So how are they being socialized within the home environment around the meaning and importance of school? And one of the best ways, it sounds like a big lift, but actually one of the best ways that parents and caregivers can do this is simply by asking questions about school. How's it going? Checking in about the routines of school, talking to students about their strengths and how they map on to what they're learning in school. And when we see this happening, we see much stronger academic gains, even though these questions may or may not be about strict academics. What it's communicating to our students is, oh, this matters. This matters to my family, and I see the purpose of school. Next up, I can't remember what's next up, but I'll know when the slide comes up. Okay, student well-being. We know that having that one caring adult, which oftentimes is in the home, is the single greatest buffer against trauma and adverse childhood experiences. We know, right, that that secure attachment that can be provided by parents and caregivers is going to carry a child throughout their life and lead to far greater outcomes. We see students entering school and moving throughout school with a more positive attitudes, more regulated behaviors, right? When we're messaging within the home environment around building your students' self-esteem and really noticing the effort that they're putting in and practicing self-regulation strategies, we see that kids are showing up more ready to learn. You know, we talk a lot about alignment, right? Like we want to know, okay, well, how did this family engagement initiative map onto the curriculum I'm teaching? Like if I'm doing this in the school, how is this happening at home? And what we like to say to partners when they bring this up is, well, we always want to be giving parents and caregivers a strength-based point of entry. Like what is leveraging their unique relationship with their child, their lived experiences, their cultural values and norms? Because when we can leverage that and find a strength-based point of entry for a family, we're giving them a very powerful way to engage, right? So for a family, it may not be pointing out blends in a book, but it may be telling a story about, you know, a tradition. It may be working on a self-regulation strategy, because I'll tell you what, from hosting like thousands of families on workshops, I know more than any other strategy, parents and caregivers want ways to help their children navigate strong emotions, practice executive function. So when we support families in these areas, we actually are helping to set students up for greater success with whatever curriculum we're teaching them. So we get these overarching skills being built at home that then reflect cross-curricularly. Next up, we have graduation. So I have to go to my favorite statistic around this. So we obviously, as you can imagine, see that students are more likely to graduate on time when districts have strong family engagement programs in place. But we also see that they have an expanded capacity to aspire, meaning they're looking towards their future and they're working towards their personal interests and goals when parents and caregivers talk at home, within the home environment, about those aspirations and goals. I believe wage earnings go up something like 0.8% for every meaningful college and career conversation that parents have in the classroom. And this was a PISA study done several years ago that looked internationally at the impact of simply talking to a child about career goals and aspirations. But how that relates to graduation is we see that students come to school with motivation, regardless of what they're thinking and feeling about how tired they are, or whatever's going on for them emotionally. The motivation to show up and endure and maintain the expectations and requirements for graduation is stronger when that enforcement is happening within the home environment. And on the next page, you can see we do have quite a bit of messaging around orienting families around the complexities of what it means actually to engage in school, and especially within the upper grades, when the systems become far more complex and it's more difficult to know, like, who do I reach out to with a question, right? In elementary school, you've got kind of a central focus, a central teacher. In adolescence, there's a lot more complexities we hear again and again from families in terms of who do I call? The relationships are different. You've got also the parent-child relationship shifting in adolescence, where students are probably less likely to share within the home environment and less likely to want to ask for support within the home environment, because we've got the very natural move towards independence and autonomy. So we work really hard, and we can all do this in our family engagement work, especially in adolescence, to orient families around how they can get involved in appropriate ways that really honor their child's autonomy. And so you'll see in adolescent family engagement, a move away from kind of that direct skill support that you might see in early childhood and elementary, more towards holistic strategies and encouraging teens to self-advocate for themselves and really move towards independent learning. And parents can play a tremendous role in that transition for their students to really set them up for whatever comes next after high school. So we don't want to lose family engagement when we get to adolescence, even though our children are telling us to stay away. We're not going to stay away. We're going to differently engage as opposed to disengage. Literacy, I mean, I know this is very well established research, but we see that students are far more likely to read at grade level by third grade when they have early engagement within the home environment. This isn't just book engagement, as we know. This is a lot about oral language development and having language-rich conversations, everything from self-narrating your everyday routines to asking children open-ended questions to engaging in dialogic reading practices. One thing I'll say, this is a perfect moment to say that when we really look at what we're asking families to do, we want to make sure we're unpacking what is involved in the ask and scaffolding it. And reading is a big one. I get reading logs come home. So the assumption is that I have books in my house, right? The assumption is that I've got, 20 minutes and I'm going to log the time and that I'm even able to understand the reading log. So when we're asking families to engage in book habits with their learners, we want to make sure we're also providing them access to the materials to make that happen. And for families who are not readers themselves, where we see low literacy rates, we want to be finding strength-based points of entry to say, you can read just by describing what you see in the pictures. You can tell stories. By doing these things, you are still giving your child a literacy-rich experience. That way, we really help families to see sort of the boundless expanse of all the ways that they can engage in their child's literacy development. Because a lot of times what we see is when parents and caregivers feel insecure about their own reading abilities, they kind of will step back and not engage in those moments. And we want to support them in engaging in new and different ways, in ways that feel comfortable, whether it's sitting and listening to an audiobook together and really showing that it matters to engage in stories. So just a sort of a side note about encouraging literacy at home. When it comes to math, this is a big one. We're actually, there's a lot of emerging research and a shift that is happening like right now. We were just at a convening with the Gates Foundation talking about this very thing, that we really need to think very deeply about the narratives that parents and caregivers hold around their own mathematical abilities and the narratives that students hold, and work to shift those narratives. And it requires, I think, a very unique and discrete approach with families, because we need to be saying to families, whatever your experiences were within math, you can support your child as a math learner just by talking positively about math, by pointing out the math you're using in your everyday moments. We also want to acknowledge that math can be anxiety provoking for families, right? So when I get a worksheet home, I'm in stress response right off. I'm in fight or flight. I can't access my higher order thinking, which I need in order to help my child. What I want from a family engagement support around math is just an acknowledgement that I'm not alone, that lots of families might feel a little stress response when the math homework comes home, and then offering strength-based points of entry. So you see some examples here, really focusing on what parents and caregivers can do around math, even especially in the older years, if the concepts are not familiar to them. And even if they are, we all know things are being taught differently. So we want to say to families, you don't need to know the answers to support your child in math. You can support your child in math just by asking questions and helping them come up with the answers. You can encourage them to call a friend or advocate for them, sit with them while they write their teacher with the question they have. So we're looking for really strength-based ways to engage families around math learning. Parents and caregivers also can play a huge role in helping children to see the relevance of math within their daily lives. But interesting twist that I was really surprised by in the research we were being oriented around at the Gates convening, we can go too far for this. When we have math anxiety and math anxious individuals, students, and we say, you need math for this and 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 this, because we're trying to really orient them around the relevance, it can create this response that's like, well, I guess I can't have any of those jobs. So more effective messaging, they're finding, is around, what math is going to help you keep all your options open. So even if you think you don't want to do something with math now, later on down the line, it's going to allow you to really have a whole range of jobs that you might not even know you want right now. Other powerful motivating messaging is around how math can help you get the best deal, can help you have higher earnings. So it's very interesting when we think about math within the context of the kind of underlying anxiety that can kind of sit within parents and caregivers. It allows us to kind of explore very innovative strategies in engaging families around math. Okay, so wanted to really quickly talk about what we think of as best practices in family engagement. So no matter what the ask is, no matter what the initiative is, whether you're starting a parent policy council or hosting a workshop, these are some things we can always employ within our family engagement efforts. So the first one is to follow the line of trust. Families have trusted relationships. They may not be with the school. So when we can reach out to those trust holders, whether it's community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, you might have existing parent groups like LCAPs where parents are meeting and they're talking. When you can disseminate information through those trusted channels, you're going to see far greater buy-in. You're going to see that warm handoff that we all want. Same goes for when we're hosting events. We don't have to host them within our schools. That might not be a comfortable place for families. So having meetups that exist outside of our school walls, maybe within community-based organizations, on the sidelines of sporting events or at playgrounds, we are going to capture more families and be able to include them. When we follow that line of trust, then we are able to build upon it, which is something we want to do. We want to create trust because that is the single greatest factor when we're talking about partnership. We want to center our families, right? We want to be picturing them. We want to learn about them and create an environment in which they're encouraged to share about their cultural values, their norms, their traditions, their languages. We want families to see themselves within the walls of our school. They're going to feel more comfortable showing up, and we're going to create far stronger school communities. So when we're picturing our families, when we're learning about them and creating lots of opportunities to hear from them, not just about their family traditions, but also what they know about their child, whether it's an email at the start of the school year that says, all children learn differently. Like, what's one thing that helps your child learn? Or how can I tell when your child is excited? Or what are some things I can notice about your child that would cue me into them being nervous, right? Like, parents hold these insights, they come to us with these insights. And when we invite them right off the bat, we're immediately signaling like, oh, this is a loop. This is a partnership. And we're saying you have valuable insights. We always want to aim for clear, strength-based communication. So we have literally, I personally have spent like the past 7 years writing to parents in 160 characters at a 3rd grade reading level around engaging in learning development. And what I have learned over those many, many years is that the clearest communication is always going to have a what, a why, and a how. What do you want families to know? Why does it matter? Not only why does it matter to them, but like, why does it matter to their child or the whole school community? And how can they do something about this very important thing? I recommend, like, if you're sending a long email, if you're creating an invitation, just check it. Does it have a what, why, and how? And put that right at the top. Because then what this is going to do is it's going to build efficacy, and it's going to give parents that can-do feeling, because they're going to glance down and they're going to go, oh, I know what they're asking me to do, and I can do it. And when we build efficacy, we are really laying the foundation for parents and caregivers to partner with us because they feel that it is a doable, achievable thing. We also always want to scaffold family engagement. And we've got a little sheet of reflective questions that we can all be asking ourselves to check that we are scaffolding. Basically, going back to that attendance reference, we want to be unpacking the ask. When we're asking families to do something, we want to say, what are all the steps involved in the thing I'm asking a family to do? And am I supporting them in taking those steps, or is more support necessary? And that is where we get the scaffolding piece, which I know we use all the time with our students. And as grown-ups, we never get scaffolding. So we get all these scaffolding things for each other. We always want to make sure families are at the table. In order for that to happen, this other stuff needs to happen, right? We have to have the trust in order for families to want to come to the table, to be able to come to the table and really sit with us as we're making decisions. Now, obviously they can't be there for all the decisions, but really being mindful about where are we going to really intentionally center family, bring families to the table, co-make decisions, and making sure that we're being really transparent, right? Like, we want family feedback. We can't change everything based on family feedback, but if we're very clear about where we can come together and where we can partner, we are going to really help keep families at the table, because one of the things that disenfranchises families from participating is feeling like it doesn't matter, right? So when families come, and they're putting in a lot of effort to come to that table, so we want to show them in very concrete ways that the feedback they gave mattered. So when we bring families together, we want to know in advance, like, okay, what is the thing we're going to do together, and how are we going to show, really demonstrate to families that it mattered, that their voices mattered. And really demonstrating change, keeping them updated, and being transparent is really key to all of that. I know I just like raced through a tremendous amount of content. We're going to give you some things.
And I'll quickly kind of go through these. These are in the deck in the follow-up, but there are some resources that we've made available both for staff as well as this amazing resource on communication for families. So this will be in all of the follow-up, but I think now we're ready to open it up for questions from anyone.
All right. I first have to say thank you both so much, Ms. Huff, and especially Ms. Honig. Your energy, your enthusiasm are infectious. And it's exactly what we needed for after a long day for many of us. So I appreciate that you're very passionate about this, and it shows. And, for families that may be wondering, well, why did we choose this particular topic? Because we do these town halls quarterly. And this was something that the entire board agreed upon because we felt it was very important in the grand scheme of things, because there is, of course, dual accountability. CCPS has to be accountable for our role in providing a high quality education to students, but we also wanted parents and families to understand that they need to be accountable as well, and that there's absolutely a role for them, and there's a partnership. There's no doubt about that. And I appreciate what you said about the feedback. That is crucial. That is why we do these things. That is why we're, always reaching out to families to ask what is working, what is not working, and to give them opportunities such as this to share with us. But absolutely, their voices matter. And I appreciate you saying that, because we all have a role that we have to play in making sure that our students are excelling. And we also talked about, as a board, the concept of the whole child, including the social emotional piece. So all of those things are critically important. So thank you again. That was fantastic. So I see quite a few messages, questions in the chat. Ms. Mackey, would you like to begin there? Or Dr. Navarro, did you have something you wanted to add first?
So we can do two things. I know that Tracy had a short presentation that had sort of how to navigate Charles County Public Schools specifically. We can quickly go through that. And if you're okay with that, then we can open it up, and then we'll pass it back to you. And then Shelley is monitoring the chat. We're encouraging everybody to put their questions in the chat. And we will, and we can take those, and Shelley can queue those up and summarize them for you.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, so Chapelier Thomas, thank you.
Thank you. So I have the wonderful job of following the passion of Parent Powered. So I'm going to do my very best to make sure that I'm as enthusiastic. Thank you both so much. I do want to share that, as we move forward with our Family Engagement, Family and Community Engagement Academy, we are looking to partner with Parent Powered, and we look forward to our continued relationship, because the work that you do is absolutely tremendous and outstanding. So thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me get to the. Okay, and just if I'm going to be unable to see the screen, so if there's any questions or anyone, just please raise your hand. I'll be more than happy to stop and talk. So we just saw Parent Powered. So for us, let me see if we can get this out of the way. minimize. So we thought as we go through this presentation, this is going to be an opportunity for us to talk to you about CCPS and how we can communicate together, collaborate together, and really just work to make sure that we're all on the same page and how we can support you as parent engagement. I do love what ParentPowered said about parent partnerships, and I think that is the goal of our office in the Department of Community Engagement and Equity and as a school system to really make those parent partnerships, well, as critical as they are, make them stronger and reinforce them. So we wanted to talk first about what is the role of our system leaders. And the two leaders that we're going to be talking about is the Board of Education of Charles County. So a few of their jobs, as you can see with the bullet points, are to establish educational and fiscal policy. They provide overall direction and govern CCPS. There are 9 members that are elected by our registered voters, and the elections are held every 4 years. Each board member serves a term of 4 years, and then our student member of the board, who is with us here tonight, is elected by students annually each spring. The role of our superintendent is slightly different. Dr. Navarro manages the fiscal and day-to-day operations of CCPS, oversees the administration of all of our schools, makes decisions on policy and procedures, creates strategic decisions to ensure student learning and success. Our superintendent is appointed by the Board of Education of Charles County and serves a 4-year term. When we were putting together just slides, this topic is about what are the steps to resolving issues, but I want to make sure that it's not just resolving issues. This is really going to be a step-by-step play on how, if you have an issue, good, bad, indifferent, but how do you resolve the issue and what are the ways to navigate that space? With that being said, I want to just reiterate what we said in the beginning about the PowerPoint being available. And as you can see, all of these links are live and connected to a place where you can go to get more information, and I will walk you through that. So if there's an issue, one of your best resources is your teacher in your child's school. So it could be a teacher that your student has had before, or it can be your current teacher. Contact your teacher. They are a wealth of knowledge. They are in the school system, and they can direct you in any way to who you might want to talk to. They really are a great resource. The second thing that you want to think about is if this situation that you are in, your issue that you're having, do you need to talk to a counselor? That's really an important part because that could be a critical piece in helping you and your student navigate the issue. So I just want to say, and all of these are live links, so I will just go here. If you want to speak to a counselor, and of course it just worked before, but it's not going to now. Okay. I can't see you, so I just want to make sure, did it go to the counseling screen or is it still on the PowerPoint?
I think it's because you're sharing, Tracy.
Okay.
So
okay.
when you go into the PowerPoint, you'll be redirected to the link, but I think it's because you're sharing on Zoom.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just know that these are live and it takes you to the space where you can find. So for instance, do you need to talk to a counselor? This will take you to a link where we'll have elementary, middle, and high school, and you'll have the opportunity to go to your school, Barnhart, and see who is your counselor and what they can help you with in resolving said issue. The next level is, what we're trying to avoid or trying to help you navigate is we don't want you to skip steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and go directly to the Board of Education. Our Board of Education is fantastic and is always open to listening to any issues that you may have, but we're probably going to send you back to 1, 2, or 3 because we really want any issues to be handled at a school level first. So you contacted your teacher, you've decided whether or not you need a counselor in this situation, you've looked, you found your counselor, and then you're going to go to your assistant principal in your building. And depending on the level, it will be who you talk to. So if you're at a high school level and there's a 9th grade assistant principal, you will go to that person. And then likewise, if the situation becomes unresolved with the assistant principal, that's when we will loop the principal in. But with any issues, the assistant principal and the principal do work very well together in resolving issues. So it'll be likely that the principal would be looped in as well. If for some reason you have contacted your teacher, a counselor if needed, assistant principal and principal, and you feel, you know, my issue's just not resolved. I still have questions. I still have a comment that I feel that I'm not being heard or I want to be heard in a different capacity. This is an opportunity to go to step 4, which is the Office of School Administration and Leadership, Executive Directors. I will go to the next slide in a moment, but on the next slide, we have 3 executive directors that oversee all of our schools. And that would be your next line of communication. And then the next is, if again, you feel that this is not being handled, the Office of School Leadership and Administration, the Chief of Schools, Dr. Marvin Jones, who is on this call tonight. And then it would go to the Office of the Superintendent. And then finally, or lastly, you would go to the Board of Education if everything that you have done along this line, this through line from contacting your teacher all the way to the Board of Education has not been met. The prior slide, we did reference our executive directors. Again, the chief of schools, a great resource to you in this office is Dr. Marvin Jones. Our executive directors are Jamie Whitfield Coffin, Erica Williams, and Richard Connolly. 301-934-7365 is the number to reach this office. So the Office of School Administration and Leadership. So for instance, we do want to pay attention to, this is 2024-25. Supervisory oversight is always subject to change annually. The best line of defense is, again, if you don't know who this person is, or you're saying, hey, maybe they've switched roles, go to your school principal, who is the executive director, and they will be able to navigate you to the correct person. So as you can see, Jamie Whitfield Coffin oversees Barnhart, Berry, Craig, Diggs, Jennifer, Malcolm, Martin, and on down the line. Rick Connolly is in the middle, and those are the schools and centers that he oversees, and then Erica Williams, and those are her schools that she oversees. So for who is in your schools, this was when we were trying to figure out, as a family, navigating a specific school, there's always so many people in the building that are there as an incredible resource to you as a family, but maybe we don't know what they do. So we thought that this would be a really great opportunity to, again, all of these are linked. So if you want to say, who is my pupil personnel worker or my PPW, you would click this link and it will take you to what the PPW does, what is their role in the school community, and additionally, each school is listed and who the PPW is. Each one of these has that feature. So again, school counselor, school resource officer or SRO, and a school psychologist. They are identified in each building. So again, if you're wondering what they do, how they can help, how do I contact them, email, phone number, and how they can really support you and your family, this is a really good place to start. So for PPWs, they work with parents, community agencies, teachers, school counselors, school psychologists, and other educational specialists in and outside of the school. So they kind of work as the go-between of outside agencies, school counselors, families, and they kind of bridge that relationship. Your school counselor is in every Charles County Public Schools, elementary, middle, and high, and learning centers. Our counselors work with students, parents, and school staff to ensure student success. Our school resource officers, there's one officer to each middle and high school in Charles County as a part of an agreement that we have. And then our school resource officers work closely with administrative staff, teachers, parents, and students to enhance school safety and address any security matters. Our school psychs are in each building, and they have specialized training in both psychology and education. They are, again, also in every building as a resource to you. I'm going to turn this over to Christine Paul. As we were talking about who is in our schools, these are some really interesting and specific titles of people that we have in each building that are there to assist you as a family. So Christine, you can take this slide.
Great, thank you, Tracy. So like Tracy said, this is really a partnership, and we're going to highlight some of extra additional help that we have at schools. So the next role is the Community Engagement Equity Liaison. The liaison role usually leads school-based professional learning, support the school and improvement planning, and the work within the Department of Community Engagement Equity on all district level initiatives. This role is in alignment with the county strategic plan and also supports the educational equity policy 1820 implementation. If you have any questions about who is the equity liaison at your school, again, you can look it up. Everything is linked, but you can also contact us if you have specific questions. We also have community school coordinators at community schools. Community schools serve as hubs that bring families, communities, and partners together to remove barrier to learning. Using an asset-based approach, community schools strive to strengthen connections to generate improved student outcomes. Schools work to provide access to high-quality academics, health services, mental health support, academic enrichment, out-of-school time programming, crisis support, adult education classes, leadership development, and anything really more throughout the community. So the community school coordinator works with the school and the stakeholders to make this happen. Next, we have our Citizen Parent Advisory Committee representative. Each school does have a representative. The representative, they serve as an essential voice for parents and community members, providing input on decisions that affect students' education while helping to strengthen the partnership between families and the school system. The committee also offers recommendations on school policies, programs, and initiatives that impact students and community. Next, we have our volunteer coordinator. Again, every school has a volunteer coordinator, and they are responsible for managing and overseeing the involvement of volunteers in school activities. Volunteer coordinators also help to create a smooth partnership between the school and its unpaid stakeholders, ensuring that both the volunteers and the school community benefit from the experience. Our Title I schools have a role called the Title I Parent Liaison. Title I is a federally funded program that provides extra academic support for schools. A Title I Parent Liaison is a school staff member who helps build relationships between parents, teachers, and the community. They also help school implement programs and encourage parental involvement. And lastly, we have the PTO Executive Leadership Board. So the executive team is a group of dedicated individuals, families, who are working together to create a positive, supportive, and active school community that benefits the students, teachers, and families. The roles on the executive team are usually divided up among various officers, each with their own specific responsibilities.
Thank you, Christine. So again, these are very specialized positions that are in all of our schools. And then some additional parent supports that we do offer within CCPS is on Facebook for ELD or English Language Development. This is a really great one-stop shop for everything that our ELD program has to offer. The content is posted for families in English and Spanish, so this is a great resource. We also have our mental health website. Again, once you are able to access this PowerPoint, you can go in, click the mental health website, and there is all kinds of resources, videos, articles that can help you and assist with any mental health concern that you have for your family, your staff, or your student. The Get to Know the School staff, this will provide a link to each school where you're able to access school administrators, teachers, and staff so that you can contact them. The Who to Call in Special Education Office is fantastic. When you go and you do the click in here, click the drop down for Who to Call, and you'll see any issue that you may have in regards to special education and who to call and who to contact. And then lastly, CCAC, the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. This is a link to join this dedicated group with their students and families if this is applicable to you. And then last, some additional things that are important for all parents to know that can keep you connected to your school communities. Parent View, this will help you learn how to navigate your account, your Parent View account. Canvas, you can keep up with your child's assignments, progress, and find resources. Of course, Where's the Bus? This year, we currently have 12,000 users, so that's fantastic. The Technology Guide for Students and Parents. This is Learn Best Practices for Digital Learning. And then on the other side, we have our parent handbook and calendar. Each page has a wealth of information to help you navigate the school system. There is also a Spanish version at ccboe.com. And then the Code of Student Conduct, and then our school nurses. Again, all of these links are live and will take you to the information that you need. That concludes our presentation. I do want to get out and stop sharing. Okay. The last I would like to say, again, our contact information is a part of the presentation. Both presentations will be available to you via the CCPS on the parent page of the CCPS website. But the Department of Community Engagement and Equity is always available to each and every one of you. If you have questions about anything to do with the school system, we are here to support you. So thank you for this time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chapelier Thomas, Ms. Paul. That was fantastic. That was really, really comprehensive. Very much appreciate the level of detail, the explanation of the board's role compared to the superintendent's role. As many people, candidly, as I didn't know before I ran, don't understand, the board is not involved in the day-to-day operations of CCPS. Many things we do not know until after it's brought to our attention. The role of the superintendent is the day-to-day operations. The board is more governance, as you mentioned, fiscal policy, policies in general, appeals, that type of thing. So, and I don't want people to feel that we're just, redirecting them intentionally to say, well, start back at step one. But it really is, one, to give the teachers the courtesy of resolving the issues when possible, because many times it's a hyper-local concern that parents have, and we want to keep and repair those relationships. And many times it can be resolved with the teachers first, and so on and so forth. So especially when you get a chance, parents, slides 3 and 4, I feel, have a lot of information. The entire presentation was fantastic, but I know it can seem overwhelming trying to navigate the system. We fully understand and appreciate that. So that was why, again, the board as a whole decided we wanted to have something of this nature, because for those who may not know, we serve almost 29,000 students. We have about 4,000 employees, many, many different departments and levels. And so we try to make it as easy to understand as possible. CCBOE.com has a lot of wonderful information. I always encourage people to start there if they have questions. And I earlier posted the link to board docs. Anytime we have a meeting that's posted, we always post the agenda. The links that you shared, Ms. Chapelier Thomas, are live in that presentation. So, again, because you were presenting, it wouldn't show for you. But if you go to that presentation, all of those links do take you to the appropriate site. So I very much appreciate the time and effort that you put into this. This was fantastic. And we'll mention again before I start taking questions and allow our board members, if they'd like to share, that the board does have a very new subcommittee. We've stood up 4 subcommittees, but one in particular is focused on community engagement, for exactly this reason, because we wanted to be more transparent, to increase our partnerships, to increase our outreach, to help answer any questions people may have. The subcommittee chair is Mr. David Hancock of District 1. Hi, Mr. Hancock. You're welcome if you'd like to share anything about the subcommittee. Not to put you on the spot, but I guess I kind of did. Ms. Chapelier Thomas is our staff liaison. Would you like to share anything, Mr. Hancock?
Not really, but just everything you had stated about what our objective is. We do want to be more transparent with our community, and in my vision anyway is to be more of a liaison between our community and the right people on our staff that can make those connections, but also to educate our community on opportunities to be involved that perhaps they don't know about. So I really look forward to this work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely agreed. We are reaching out actively to key stakeholders in our community, key groups that we know that are very active to help us spread the word. And Mr. Hancock, as I mentioned, is the subcommittee chair on behalf of District 1. Ms. Brenda Thomas is our District 2 representative. Ms. Nicole Kramer is our District 3 representative, and I represent District 4. So thank you again, Mr. Hancock, for that. So now we will I'll first begin before we begin taking questions, because that was the last presentation, correct, Dr. Navarro? Those were the two I saw posted. Thank you, and great job again. Very much appreciated. Are there any board members, and please raise your hand, if there are any comments that you'd like to make, any additional information you'd like to share? First, I see Ms. Samisha Thomas. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, I think I'm unmuted. You should be able to hear me, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I think this presentation was awesome. Ms. Honig, making sure I pronounce that right. You were speaking my language when you talked about math anxiety, and the way that if kids have math anxiety, that they may think that there's a whole list of careers that they may not even be able to consider. I was that kid, and I thought I got to college and I opened and I said, "What can I take? Well, I only have to take one math class." That was like because I thought, okay, I'm not good at math. Years later, I managed $83 million worth of payroll, but I thought I wasn't good at math. So I was so inspired to hear that. I hope many parents were inspired to hear that. In addition to that, the other thing that I think is great is, you've collected a lot of information about what it means to engage parents. But, for my district, and I'm sure David is aligned with me, we heard, what you've collected and what your experience is. But I would like to put that out to our parents, particularly in my district, but across the county. I really want to hear firsthand from parents, what are your challenges and your personal challenges so that we can address those. So those are the 2 points that I'd like to put out there. If we have parents that have challenges, come to us. We're here to support you, and then that way we can, have a comprehensive approach. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Any other board members have questions or comments? Ms. Jamila Smith, and then I see Ms. Kramer.
No, well, good evening to everyone. Jamila Smith, District 2. Echo my colleague's sentiments in terms of how wonderful this presentation was. Really excited that we were able to partner with ParentPowered and bring sort of an external partner to kind of give a more national landscape of what parent engagement is. We, of course, have our localized context in terms of what we're trying to do for our school specifically, but great to be able to benchmark some best practices that are happening kind of beyond Charles County, even beyond Maryland. So really appreciate you all partnering with us and just wanted to extend a thanks and kudos. As a parent that actually has, children in school right now, I can understand how daunting it could be and challenging it could be to understand, how do I partner? What space do I step into? Of course, my child comes home. I know I'm supposed to check grades and homework, ask about their day. But that's really the extent of it. And really wanting to understand from a teacher's perspective, from an educator's perspective, those who have been educated and understand how to best support our students academically. How can I step into that space and be able to partner with you and offer kind of those wraparound supports of, it's not just in school, it's not just home, but it's a collective approach between all of us. So really appreciate all the resources, the links, the recommendations, and I'm hoping that, I'm seeing the chat sort of moving with a plethora of questions. So I want to yield my time so we can actually get to the questions that are being raised by our parents. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Kramer, and then Ms. Butler Washington.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And I also want to extend thank you to ParentPowered for really coming and providing, some information. We all know how key parents are to student success, but really being able to pinpoint, some of the data behind that. And so I just really appreciate that. And I also just want to give a kudos to Ms. Chapler Thomas and Ms. Paul and all the work that the Office of Community Engagement is doing. For standing up the pilot for the Academy at Eva Turner that I think a couple of parents mentioned in the chat. So looking forward to more on that. So stay tuned. I know there's some questions about it coming to different schools and things like that. And that is something that Ms. Chapler Thomas and the Community Engagement Subcommittee, which I am on as Madam Chair Morley stated, along with several other board members. That's something that we have discussed, and there is going to be more to come, obviously, on that. And I know there were some questions about how were the committees formed, and I tried to answer that in chat, but I know that's a little maybe hard to understand in just a few words, but essentially these are board subcommittees, as I mentioned, and so the chairperson appointed, as a board, we decided on the committees, what they would be, what the subcommittees would be, and the chairperson appointed those members to those subcommittees. And as far as community engagement, yes, part of the purpose of the community engagement subcommittee is to engage our community. And so those meetings are, I believe they're posted, Madam Chair, correct me if
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
wrong,
They're
but
posted on board docs. So every time we have a meeting, it is posted, the agenda, the links, et cetera, are posted on board docs.
yeah, and just know that these are new. We're just getting started, and obviously really looking forward to this work. As our chairperson on the community engagement subcommittee mentioned, Mr. Hancock, we're just getting started, but we're really excited. We have a lot of ideas, and definitely going to be bringing in some members of our community, parents, other organizations, and key stakeholders in our community to help that subcommittee flourish. So just stay tuned for that. I'm super excited. This is something I'm really passionate about as a parent of a CCPS student, and just someone who really is passionate about community engagement and parent engagement. So just thank you all for being here, and keep the questions coming.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. And just to add that all of our meetings are recorded. So if you miss a meeting, parents, please feel free to go back. As you know, most of what we do has to be addressed publicly. So this was no exception. We voted on it, as Ms. Kramer said, as a board. We discussed what the committees would be. They are fiscal management, policy management, community engagement, and then strategic planning. And in particular with community engagement, it aims to evaluate how CCPS interacts with the community. It provides updates to the board on existing community engagement efforts, and it will collaborate regarding future initiatives. So it is something that is very near and dear to all of our board members, and we will be reporting back to the larger board and discussing any potential changes that may need to be made. But we're working very closely with Ms. Chapelier Thomas, and we are very excited by this opportunity. Yes, Ms. Bella Washington.
Madam Chair, I'm going to keep it very simple. Thank you to presenters. I echo what my colleagues had already stated, but I wanted to just concentrate and state that the steps for the resolving issues, we heard you, community. We want to make sure that we put it in as plain English and plain language as you could understand, because if you take those steps, all the way from one all the way into the board, just remember that if you miss a step, we're going to send you back. But the good thing about it is you see how it works and how each complements to each other. So just please, I hope you took a snap picture of that. I did, because when people ask, I can, point you to those directions. But just please make sure that you follow those steps. So we want to make sure that we have everything that we needed to make sure we resolve your child issue, because as you say, your child is our business. So we want to make sure that we are helping you as always. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Butler Washington. Any other board members like to, including our student member? Thank you again for joining us, Mr. Verk. Anything you'd like to share?
Nothing for now. Thank you so much for asking. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, Ms. Mackey, how would you like to proceed with the questions, ma'am?
So I'm scrolling back up, see kind of where we started. There are a couple of staff members who have answered some questions within the chat, but there was a question about, the Family Engagement Academy being piloted at Eva Turner, and what were the plans for the school system to push this out to other schools. I know it was touched on just a little bit. I didn't know if a staff member or board member wanted to expand a little bit on that. There's a couple of questions about that opportunity for schools in the chat.
Tracy, what if we talk about the plan? We're starting this year with the FACE Academy and our plan to expand. Thank you.
So our Family and Community Engagement Academy is, we're piloting at Eva Turner Elementary. This year we have had 15 families who have signed on to be a part of the cohort. As we look, we are calling this a pilot, but we understand that we really want to make this available to all families at all 41 schools. So we are looking next year to develop a fall of 25 cohort and a spring of 26 cohort. And we're still fleshing out the logistics of it, but you can expect to see something that's kind of like a hybrid model, if you will. So we may have a kickoff event. It'll be open to all families. And then kind of like a college coursework, if you will, where you can go and select X amount of courses to be in the cohort. And they'll be on various topics to include well-being, academic success, social, emotional, whatever the community really wants to see, how to navigate CCPS outside Charles County government, any outside agencies. So just any topic that we can make easier to navigate for families and make it family friendly and create that parent partnership is what we're looking to do. Again, there will be a fall and a spring. And then in the spring of 2026, our goal is to have a family and community engagement conference, an inaugural conference that will be open to all families. We'll have keynote speakers and workshops, all in the name of assisting families and for the parent engagement component. I hope that helps.
Yes, ma'am. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Ms. Mackey?
Okay, there is a question in here about the protocols in place for typical response time for a family when they're trying to resolve an issue specifically. This person states some families may get a 1 to 2 business day response, while others may not get a response for quite some time, or if they escalate it to another staff member. So is there someone who wants to take that question, talk about the process that's in place?
Sure, I'll jump in on this one. And I don't have it in front of me, but it sounded like you said that there's concerns about discrepancies in response time when folks are reaching out to schools to have an issue resolved. What we have, our practice, our common practice is that responses are provided to all families within a 48-hour period, not to go beyond that. And even if it is a quick note to say that I got your message, I'm looking into that situation, I will be back in touch. There should be some sort of response back before, by the time we get to 48 hours. That's the practice that we have. And if the response time that you're getting is beyond that, then that is something that certainly, we do again encourage that folks try to find out from the lowest level at the schoolhouse, what the reasoning was. Perhaps there is a legitimate reason for such a delay. Folks get sick sometimes unexpectedly or what have you. So certainly we would encourage folks to, try again as much as what they can, even if it is beyond that 48-hour period. However, if it doesn't seem that this is an extenuating type of circumstance, then the information that you saw there as far as your next levels, your next points of contact beyond the school, again, the teacher, the assistant principal, the principal, all in-house. After that, you are looking at the executive director who oversees that particular school. And if still not satisfied with the result, then you will come to me next as the chief of schools, and then we would, we should be able to get it all worked out by then. But that is the protocol. And like Ms. Butler Washington did say that, when that we have found that people have skipped over and jumped all the way up to the superintendent. She is going to boot it back to me. I'm going to boot it back to the executive director. They're going to boot it back to the principal. And so we will insist that all efforts have been made to resolve those matters in-house. The chain of command is important. And so, but the response time, 48 hours is what it should be. There could be extenuating circumstances. We always encourage you to find out what's going on there. But if it's consistently beyond that time frame, then that is something that the next level needs to hear about. Hopefully that helps.
Can I just add that, yes, the reason why we also have that is that, I know many things about the school system, but I'm not an expert in certain things. And we have psychologists, counselors, speech therapists who have devoted their academic careers to understanding needs of students, special education teachers. And so part of why we ask how to resolve this is that sometimes the better answers on how to help children is by working with the folks closest to them. So many times, I try to solve an issue because a parent calls me and I happen to pick up the phone, or a parent emails me. And what I have learned as an educator is that I need to work with my content specialists, and they are throughout the schools. They're in our schools. And so sometimes it's a chain of command, but it's less a chain of command than it is we want to get the best possible answers. So we work when you're not getting any responses. In that way, we can accelerate that. But I have some excellent staff members who can queue up and they can come together and problem solve to help kids with whatever they're going through better than sort of at my level. And so I want to point that out as well, because we want to use the experts that we have in our schools to help us make it a better learning experience and a better engagement experience for our families and our students. Thank you.
And Dr. Varro, can I just piggyback on that just really quickly, that you hit on something that I was thinking about earlier because it's not listed in the slides that we saw, is that, yes, those are the people that you will contact, but sometimes the issue is related more to an area that you didn't see there. So special education, or something very specific to instruction, or the Office of Teaching and Learning, rather. And so you didn't see those as points of contact in that information. However, depending on what the issue is, it may come from the principal to Kevin Lowndes' office in teaching and learning, or it may go over to Mr. Johnson's office in special education. It may not necessarily go to the executive director or be appropriate for the executive director. So that's kind of what Dr. Varro was getting at as well, that there are many other experts in our offices there that can perhaps be more helpful depending on what the issue is. So that's all. I just want to touch on that.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm in agreement. And for those who may not know, the board, when people contact us, and if you do choose for whatever reason to start with the board or to escalate to the board, we will ensure that you receive a response. But we, by design, intentionally try to keep as much out of the proceedings as possible. And the number one reason why is because if it does come before us on appeal, we have to remain objective. We can't be too involved in the day-to-day, because then we also would have a conflict as the potential body making the final decision. So just know that if we respond and, we are not giving a lot of specifics and we're essentially saying we will ensure someone follows up with you, it's not to brush you off. It's not to, not be concerned with your issue. We're concerned. Trust me when I say I also have children in the school system. My daughter graduated 2 years ago. I have 2 elementary school students that are still in. We're going to be here for quite a while. But we want to make sure that, again, the chain of command is followed, and that if it does come before us on appeal, that we're not too heavily involved. And also, for those who may not be aware, our only employee as a board is the superintendent of schools. She then has supervision over all the other employees. So, we're not going to then say, well, we're going to reach out to the chief of schools, for example, because that's not our role as a board. That's the superintendent's responsibility. So, not to further confuse you or to muddy the waters, but just for people to understand that when you get a particular response, it's not in any way to dismiss your concerns. It's just to make sure that, as Dr. Jones says, the appropriate person has had the opportunity to respond, and then if there's some reason there's not a response, then we can ensure that there's a response. So I hope that clarifies for anyone who may be wondering. All right, Ms. Mackey.
There was a question in the chat about the homework protocols. Are students assigned homework daily? If not, how often, and what that looks like?
Mr. Lowndes?
Yes, so thank you. So I don't know if you can hear me, but for some reason my video, there we go. So it does depend on the grade. So we do provide guidance to schools as to how much homework they should be providing. At the elementary level, it's less than at the high school level. At the high school level, we do it by course. And so I think sometimes people are surprised when they first go into the secondary level when a student might get a half hour of homework in every class, and it turns out to be they're getting 2.5 to 3 hours of homework. So we do work with schools and we do give them guidance, but we do expect schools to be giving our students homework.
And I would say that this is a great question as a parent that I ask when my kids go to school, the back to school night, if the school doesn't mention it, I also ask what is the expectations for homework, and I would encourage you to do the same.
Another question that I see in the chat is the Charles County government recently launched a Children and Family Academy of some sort. Are there plans for the school system to have a liaison to the county government to take advantage of this new resource?
Tracy, I think you have that one, right?
I do. I'm going to go to the chat just so that I make sure that, so we, Doria Fleischer from the Charles County government oversees that academy, and we've been working very closely to kind of see where the direction to go next year so that we're not duplicating the same things. So they already had that in place. I think it's every Wednesday from now until I want to say June, sometime around there. And it's kind of the same idea. We are presenting to that academy as well. And it's important to note that at the end of their academy, they essentially graduate from the cohort. And it's the same thing with the Family and Community Engagement Academy. We will have everyone who goes through the cohort at the end. If you complete 5 out of the 6 learning sessions, you will have a family graduation, which is a really exciting thing. So we do work with Doria and we talked about what would this look like for next year when we have the fall and the spring cohorts and how we can work together to make it collaborative.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Mackey?
There's a question about if families are able to meet the adults in schools administrators who work at the Starkey Building administrative offices, such as during like a back to school event, and what maybe that would look like if that's a possibility.
So I think that's a good suggestion. Now that I have my central office, we always think about back to school nights at schools, but maybe people want to get to know our staff here at Central. So I wrote that suggestion down about open house for Starkey and get to walk around the different offices and meet the different offices. So I don't know who suggested it because we have a long, but whoever did, I actually wrote it down as a follow-up. So thank you. I think that's a great suggestion.
And Dr. Navarro, I just want to add that many times schools do invite folks from central office to join their back to school night, and folks do go out there, and principals do introduce people that are supporting the schools. So we do go out on an invitation as well.
Yeah, I was going to add that several of our board members also recently, like earlier today, attended the NSBA Advocacy and Equity Institute. And one of the sessions absolutely dealt with family engagement, community engagement. And that was one of the things that they found is very helpful, is either home visits when possible, or if not, just visits in general, just having the conversation with parents, with teachers, with central office, with staff, just getting to know each other better, because oftentimes just having that initial discussion, knowing who you can go to when you have concerns, that alleviates a lot of the fears. And just being candid, it helps to build trust. That's something that we're actively going to be working on as well. As many of our board members now have only been serving for 2 or so years. Mr. Hancock is the most senior. But of course, once you get on the board, you inherit all of the previous, questions and concerns. No one differentiates at that point. So just understand that, this is definitely a new direction that we're going to be going in. And we very much appreciate your feedback. It's definitely always taken into consideration. Miss Mackey, the chat is jumping.
Yeah, so just so everybody in the meeting knows, I'm trying to go back to the very beginning to just make sure that I'm getting those initial questions that were submitted so that they're not missed. I'm taking notes feverishly. Okay. A person asked about the role of DEI in community engagement and what's happening on a federal scale. And how the system will ensure that minority students receive the same opportunities as their peers.
So I'm happy to take this on and see if board members also wanted to do that. So first and foremost, I would say, speaking on behalf of the board, that one of the core values of the Board of Education is around equitable learning opportunities for students. The strategic plan, if you see our strategic plan, the section 2 is around equitable and increasing access and equitable opportunities for all students across the system. The board has requested that any data that we put out there for how many students are taking advanced placement courses, how students are doing on their state assessments, how many students are participating in extracurricular activities, for example, that they are all disaggregated. And if you want to spend some quality time on an evening, you can go to our strategic plan and look at the data, because we disaggregate that data by gender, by race, by ethnicity, and also by some of our groups like multilingual learners, students with disabilities. That continues to be the focus. I have not been instructed from this Board of Education to move away from that. I understand that there's a lot of questions and anxieties for some of our members of our community because of different messages that are out there, but I want to assure our community that we are steadfast at improving every single outcome for our students and meeting the requirements that we set out for our strategic plan. We're actually wrapping up our 4th year of this strategic plan, and we're just about to launch a massive engagement request to many of our families, students, staff, and community partners to build the next set of our next strategic plan. And the message that I've gotten from my bosses is that we continue to ensure that every single student, no matter their circumstance, no matter their background, no matter their language, no matter their varying levels of abilities, that we ensure that they have educational opportunities to the best. So we will notify you. I believe that some of you received my message as parents of things when I have to notify the community, when we have to change protocols to support information to families. We have done so. Unfortunately, and I will say personally, it was very difficult for me to have to send a message to our immigrant community about some actions, but it was important for us to inform our community of things that we as the school needed to know to better support them as families in case anything happened outside of school. But we continue to ensure that our schools are safe and welcoming environments for our kids to learn.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro. And I will just add, as an immigrant myself, I'm the first generation in my family raised and educated in the United States. Absolutely. Absolutely, we remain committed to equitable education for all students. Nothing has changed in that respect. We worked very long and hard on an equity policy that we use to view all policies that we as a board pass. That has not changed from this board. I understand your concerns and your fears. We are constantly seeing things changing almost in real time. We did meet today with representatives from both Senator Van Hollen and from Congressman Steny Hoyer, and those that were present, myself, Ms. Smith, Ms. Samisha Thomas, Ms. Kramer, Ms. Bella Washington, Dr. Latanya Smalls, we raised those questions and concerns as well. The guidance we have been given is to understand that executive orders have and will continue to be issued. What we need to pay attention to at this moment is the funding and what may follow that. That is the guidance that we've been given so far. As things change, I know our staff attorney, Mr. Schwartz, is very much, in contact with all of these things. He keeps up with these things. As we know, you will know, and that is our promise, to remain transparent. But it changes nothing. And speaking on behalf of myself, it will change nothing for me ever. That is something that I remain committed to. That is what I live. Yes, Ms. Kramer and Ms. Samisha Thomas.
Find the unmute button. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I agree wholeheartedly with Chairperson Morley's sentiments, and just want to say that during our meetings today and throughout the conference that we attended the last few days, the message was clear to stay the course in public education. And that's what I think this board is committed to do. We are going to continue to serve in the best interest of students. That's what we're here for. And that's what we're going to do. And if things that are happening on a national level, require us to react, then we will do that. But we're going to stay the course here and serve in the best interest of each and every student. So I just want to give my personal and individual commitment to that with this board.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I want the other parents to be able to ask their questions. So Ms. Creamer also echo her sentiments. We are going to stay the course for our students because we are committed to making sure each and every learner is educated with what they need. And so I don't want to go any further, but say I am committed to staying the course as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, Ms. Mackey.
There was a question in the chat about, is there a body or a panel that holds parents of students accountable? And the example given was in the case of if a child is involved with an incident at their school with another child. Is there any accountability for the parent of the children involved? Is there a body or a panel of individuals who would oversee that?
And then ask Dr. Navarro, would you like to address that to someone in particular?
Oh, yes, Dr. Jones is unmuting himself as we speak.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, this kind of question comes up from time to time, and it's a little tricky because our charge is to work with students, and at the very end of the day, our authority is limited at students. Now we do our absolute best to get parents in an agreeable place to really understand that sometimes the behaviors that we deal with students, we need their support with, and we need them to really have the full picture of the impact of some of their behaviors on not only their own learning but their peers and the stressors that sometimes it causes other families. We try to paint the full picture for families when we are explaining and trying to get them to really, take some ownership, take accountability, help us really, and not that we are again the authority to really, hold their feet to the fire as far as consequences, but to have those real conversations with families to let them to help them to really understand that we truly need their partnership because again our limitations are with what we can do with students, but we are big on partnering with families so that that they get the full picture of what's going on in order to help children learn to do better and again not impact so many others around them with some of their behaviors. But there isn't at this moment, but so much that we can do for families who are not necessarily agreeable or not understand them. We try as we may. At the end, our charge is really with students as much as we possibly can. Now, I'll give you a snippet of something that we are working on, and I think I've talked about this in other board meetings, and so this is a work in progress. But and some districts do this. A code, how we have the code of student conduct. There is something that we're working on called a code of parent conduct. And that document, when it's all said and done, hopes to be something that families can agree that this is the code we're going to live by as the adults who are setting examples for our children, the role models that we are supposed to be. This document, this guidance, is going to be just like the code of student conduct, something that we're going to ask families to agree to abide by, and the consequences, if you will, or the matters of holding people accountable, they will be inside of this document as well. That will be included in this document as well. And so, again, we're being very strategic and reasonable with what that looks like. So this is a work in progress. And so our goal is to have this as something that we will have in place for next school year. Again, recognizing that it's not a matter of just looking for some kind of way to punish parents whose kids aren't doing right. Not that, but to really get people to understand the full picture and to be willing to partner with us and take ownership or accountability for what they can control, what they can help us out with, because we are going to keep the course on that and working with children and families. And so we just want to get everybody on the same page. So stay tuned for that. I don't have a lot of details on that yet, but we're working on it. Tracy's office is knee deep in some of that work too. So stay tuned. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. And if I'm hearing you correctly, in terms of home, because we've received this question, I know many of our board members have discussed this as well. We've even had some conversations around it, that in terms of holding parents accountable, unless there's specific legislation, if I'm understanding correctly, there's not much we can do. You know what I mean? That we don't have jurisdiction, so to speak. Is that correct, sir? For those that maybe want.
Yes, that is correct. Even with truancy, there was a time that the state's attorney's office would be, I guess, more involved when it comes to that, and those families who were just habitually not really staying on top of that as much. There were some other things legislatively that could be done, not as much anymore, and so that's not a battle that we are fighting. We're going to keep working with trying to do whatever we can to get be sure students are in school and they're doing well, and get parents on our side as far as being on the same page with us, because we all want the same things. Sometimes our scopes are a little more narrow, and we just need to help people widen it a little bit and to see the bigger picture. So that's our goal. That's about all we can do right now in that regard.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Ms. Mackey?
Dr. Jones, can I just piggyback off of that question and that comment and that conversation very quickly? So you talked about the code of student conduct, right? And then this process in place for possibly a parent document. What about teachers and administrators and staff? What kind of code of conduct documents are in place that Charles County Public Schools employees agree to?
Sure. Yes, when you sign on as an employee with Charles County Public Schools, you agree to abide by the employee manual as an employee of the school system, and that document does govern. That's one of the documents that governs our behavior, our actions, what we agree to do, how we agree to conduct business as employees of the school system. We all are bound by that as employees. But then also the policies and the rules that are in place, those that apply to staff members and how we do business, yeah, we're bound by those as well. And so for us, there are accountability measures, just as there are at anyone's job. There are guidelines that you have to follow. And when things don't go the way they're supposed to, then there is progressive discipline that staff members, that employees, that we are subject to as well. And so we as adults, we do have, yes, some accountability measures that we are responsible for holding up our end of the bargain. And so students are, and so we are thinking long and hard about the other piece to that puzzle as far as families go, and just making sure that we all are in lockstep. But absolutely, employees, yes. And it looks like Dr. Navarro has a question now.
Yes, ma'am.
No, not a question. I'm looking at the chat, and I just wanted to also add this piece in holistically, that, there's this question around behavior of everybody involved. how do parents behave? How do staff behave? How are students behaving? And that became also part of our latest chat, if you're following the chat. So I just wanted to let our public know that we came back to the board earlier, a couple months ago, and we did an update to the board around the student code of conduct, because this year we tightened the student code of conduct, the consequences. There was a lot of concerns around disruptive students and what were the consequences. And we do this in committee. We do this in committee where we bring in student representatives, parents, staff, community members, and have a discussion about what evidence do we have, what are we seeing in schools, what do we need to change. And as a result of it, we added some things to the code of conduct. We had parents that were saying, sometimes my kid gets in trouble because they were just protecting themselves. They hit back because somebody hit them first. What about for certain things? Our staff was being assaulted sometimes, and sometimes we had the use of technology inappropriately by students at the secondary level. So we had to address those issues. So we're constantly having, on a committee base of multi-stakeholders, having those discussions on how we deal with that. The other thing that I think is important for you as families to know that we are also committed to working with our unions that when a student is removed from the classroom for a disruptive behavior, we, in our contract with our teachers, once there's been a consequence for the student, we also, and if it is a highly disruptive behavior, we also want to have a conference back so that it readjusts the student back into the classroom and also supports our staff. So we're constantly looking at all the players, and I think it's okay to say we all have to have a code of conduct of how we all expect to behave, because we're constant models to our children about how we all need to behave. And I think holding everybody accountable is important. And I think our first approach to it is how to de-escalate situations, engage people, understand that people are coming into their spaces with things that we may not know about, and we need to unpack what some of the core issues are, address them, support them so they can go back to either doing their jobs, being wonderful, engaged parents, or being wonderfully engaged students.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro. And I will also add that a lot of these things also occur outside of the school. Particular social media is a huge negative influence on many of our children. And to your point about everyone having accountability and being mindful of behavior, I would encourage parents to please be mindful of what you post on social media. Many of those things get back to the students. I've had students send me screenshots of things and email me things that they've seen parents post on social media. And those things live on forever. So we all have to be mindful that we do all play a role in this. But thank you. Very thoughtful responses. A quick time check. It is 8:37. We are ending at 9 p.m. Ms. Mackey, if you could continue on, we will certainly get to as many questions as we can.
Sure. A parent early in the chat posted that they have a child who is nonverbal with Down syndrome. I think it was an elementary school age child. And they're uncertain how to support them on the daily. Is there any resources, guidance, advice that parents who may be in the same position as this individual could connect with, resort to, utilize to support their child each day?
I'll take that, Ms. Mackey. So we have speech language pathologists working with our nonverbal students. And so each student is worked with on an individual basis, depending on their specific needs. So I'll put my email in the chat. If you can contact me individually, I can look up what school your child's in, and I can look up who their speech pathologist is, and I'll have them reach out and work with you and give you some direction as to how you can work with your child.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lowndes. Ms.
The
Mackey.
next question I see is a parent posted that they have reached out to their child's school looking for tutoring resources, any additional supports they could provide for their child at home to help them in the classroom. And they really didn't get anywhere with support from the school. What other options, resources, points of contact could we provide to parents in this case, such cases?
What was I missed the beginning part, Shelly. I'm sorry. I was putting my email in the chat.
No problem. So a parent posted in here that they're looking for resources to help their child. Specifically, tutoring was mentioned, and they reached out to the school and never really got any feedback. So they're looking for tutoring supports and, you know, other platforms, recommendations for how they can find help for their children.
So unfortunately, some of our support we just lost. We were using a company called FEV Tutoring, and they just notified us that they were no longer providing that service. But I do know that we work with schools to provide extended learning opportunities for students. And so if you can, once again, contact me in that email and we can work with the school directly, because depending on the school and what type of school it is, if it's a Title I or a community school, there are different resources that are available that we can also direct you to and support you with. So please, once again, contact me directly and I can work with you individually on that.
Thank you, Mr. Lowndes. Ms. Mackey?
Mr. Lowndes, this question may be one for you as well, if you want to hang tight here. A parent asked about, is there clear standards, policy, guidance, language in place for high school acceptance / enrollment for students who are homeschooled?
So the guidelines that we must follow are from the state, and the state is very, what it does, it tells parents they have to follow the state guidelines around the state curriculums and meeting that. And so when we get students that come to us that are in high schools, we look at the curriculum that they were involved with at home, and we look at, first of all, to see if the program they were involved with was a program that has been identified as being a match with Maryland state standards. And then if the program is truly a homeschool program, then we do some testing to see where the student is as far as their math and for their math placement. So we look at all of the information that the parent receives, and then we give some individual testing based on the material that we receive from the students. But you know, we are charged with following the state guidelines that parents receive when they have homeschooling.
Right. Another question for Mr. Lowndes, Ms. Mackey, or someone else?
No, I just waiting to make sure that you're okay if I continue to move forward.
Sure.
A
Yes,
parent in the chat asked about the protocols in place for bullying in schools. Is there someone who can talk about that?
So I can talk a little bit about if there's bullying in schools. There is a bullying form, but there's also parents should be reaching out to the administration of that school and having a discussion if the schools are not aware of the bullying. And then the schools can help you fill out the bullying forms. And then our student services gets involved as well. And we work with the schools to come up with a solution, depending on the individual actions that have taken place at the school between the person who's doing the bullying and the person that is getting bullied.
Thank you, Mr. Lowndes. I do want to point out too that on the main page of the school system website, there's lots of content on there, but under one of our main menu areas is the See Something, Say Something tool platform. And the bullying harassment complaint form is one of the prompts or modules, if you will, that is built into that tool. So I wanted to share that update with the group as well. I see a lot of comments kind of sparked from an initial question in the chat about additional parent-teacher conferences, and this particular parent who posted that, you know, was interested in having more opportunities for a system-wide parent-teacher conference more than the fall that is typically built in the school system calendar.
And I just want to say this is a great question because Shelley Mackey, who just asked that question, is in charge of our calendar work group. And I just thought, I saw it in the chat, a couple of parents also said, yeah, it'd be great to be able to have some. So board members, Shelley's coming to you at the February work session. And I'm sure she took a note of this. I took a note of it, of something. So as we look at, and then we bring it back to the committee, but if there's other interest that you hear from the community as you did this one tonight, that is something that you want to then tell Shelley to have the work group that's working on recommendations for you come forward with multiple options for the schedules, and to also see how other school systems maybe have done a fall and a spring parent conference time as well, and in different modalities. So good feedback.
Yes, thank you. We've definitely discussed this at a few meetings in terms of, does the Indigenous Peoples Day in October, is that too soon in the school year? And, does it allow enough time for teachers to have sufficient data, et cetera, et cetera? So we have addressed it in the past. Very happy to take a look at other options as we consider approving future calendars. All right. Ms. Mackey.
There is a main slide too in the front of the website that the school system is looking for calendar committee volunteers. I believe the interest form is open next Friday, so I'm just going to plug that very quickly. We're looking for parents, students, staff members to be a part of that conversation, a part of that work. So please check our website out and apply. Next question is, there's one or two individuals who posted questions about homework. I think it was an elementary school parent who said that their child's teacher had shared that they're not able to bring home graded work. And the parent was asking really why that's the process, because they want to see that graded work to see maybe where their child is struggling. And then another parent in the chat said that I believe it was a reference to Title I schools and that they were informed that Title I schools don't send homework down. So I think that's, I know Mr. Lowndes talked a little bit about homework policies in place, but I did see a few more questions around the topic of the elementary level homework specifically.
So the first one was the graded work. And so once again, I don't know what specific work they're talking about. I don't know if it was a common assessment that the schools are holding on to, but you can go in and look at it at the school, or what other type of work they're talking about. But I will have to look into the school and see why they're not providing the graded work and allowing it to go home.
Mr. Lowndes, if I can chime in on that.
Yeah.
I do think that is a conversation worth having with the individual school leader there. What I'm aware of that happens on some occasions is that, particularly at the elementary level, is that sometimes teachers will not send that graded work home. They will grade it and they will keep it in a folder of some sort for the purpose of bringing out at the parent conference and sharing with the families, because sometimes the experience has been that many of the graded assignments don't make it home, and then families are left to just see the grade in the grade book, where some teachers feel like, okay, if I hang on to it, then when I meet with families, I can share with them this information. Now, I'm not a big proponent of that per se. What I've said, because even when I was a principal, I had teachers that wanted to do that. And what I said was to keep copies of it. I mean, if that was something that you were concerned about, because not every child had troubles getting that work home. Teachers sometimes would do that because there were some children who the stuff wouldn't make it home. And so the teacher said, okay, when the parent asked me about it and I tell them what it was, and the parent doesn't always believe me, so I keep the copies here. Understood. Keep copies. Was my take on it. But I think it's a conversation that those who have those concerns, they should reach out to their school's leader and just to sort of find out what the protocol is. Perhaps there is a reason for it, and maybe it's something that can be discussed. At the elementary level, I've seen that a few times, so I just thought I would chime in on that question.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lowndes, Dr. Jones. Ms. Mackey.
Thank you. There's a question that was submitted in advance. It was one of the pre-submissions that a community member provided prior to this evening, but I see it's a topic that was brought up in the chat as well. So I'm going to combine these two. It's in reference to a parent at an elementary school. Is there anything that can be done about student pickup in the morning? Talking about car rider lines. This particular parent said they have to get out of their cars, walk up to check the students out. The topic that was submitted in advance was specific to the car rider pickup process for one of our specific elementary schools. Is there someone who could talk about, procedures in place related to student drop off and pickup?
Full disclosure, I've asked this very question. I had concerns as an elementary parent. So thank you to whoever raised it.
Sure. I'll start with this one, but I see Mike Heim on the call. He might want to chime in on this. What I can tell you is that the car rider pickup situation is different at every school, and quite honestly, it's a bit of a challenge at every school, just about, except for maybe our newest schools. And the reason that is because most of our schools were never built or designed with the idea that we would have that many car riders. And so over the years, school leaders have had to determine how to handle this and what's the most efficient and safe way that we can bring in 200 to 300 cars in the morning, for example, at Berry. And so that was never really designed for that. So it's a bit of a trick that all schools have to figure out now. And so some places, they've got it down to a science and it works out really well. And then there are some places that are still challenged because they have, for example, one of the ones we received a question about, because half the school are walkers, a third of the school are walkers, a third of the school are bus riders, and a third of the school are car riders. And so you have, all three of those different kinds of ways of coming and going that you have to navigate. And depending where it's located, right on a main busy road, then you're looking at using a bus lot and a parking lot at the same time, which is, I think, what the new setup at the school that was asked about, that I understand looks like it's going to work a little better to pull some cars right off the main road there. So, but it really isn't one that you can answer. I think holistically, because every school is different, every car rider, process has to be different for that, for that particular building, of that particular property. And it's a trick that most schools haven't really just completely mastered, because again, they weren't designed for that. And there's so many more that we get sometimes, over the years, that those numbers have grown and grown and grown. And so we're always looking for ways to make that better. Chaim, did I stall enough for you to really jump in here, or are you good? I guess he's good.
I wanted to add to Dr. Jones that when I raised this issue with our principal, another consideration was the amount of time teachers were spending after school waiting for parents to pick their children up, and candidly just doing unpaid time, unpaid overtime. And so he said that, and I recognize it now. I don't love it, but it does move much faster in the afternoons. And so they struggle with that, and we're at one of the larger elementary schools, so he did provide that feedback as well, that it was also considering the fairness to the teachers in the afternoons because they stayed so late waiting for children to be picked up.
Shameless plug, most of our schools have buses that carry all of those car riders. Buses carry all of those car riders. So families, if your child does not have to be in a car, put them on the bus. So Chaim, go ahead.
Good evening. So I would agree with Mr. Jones. How schools develop their car rider drop-off and pickups in the afternoon is based upon the layout of the school and the campus. Unfortunately, some of our schools, like Wade Elementary School, the school is located not too far off of the street, so you don't have a long driveway compared to Billingsley, which is one of our newer elementary schools that opened in 2019. And when we built that and we were working on design with the architects, we did ask them to put that building as far off of the roadway as we could. So as you go past that school on Billingsley Road, you see that school is off the roadway, is back close to the wood line as we can. So that allows them to get more of the cars off of Billingsley Road, and then they loop them around the parking lot. Some schools that have the shorter driveways, they will double up with drop-offs and pickups, but again, that can also pose some safety risk. To Mr. Jones' point, we do try to encourage kids to ride the buses, but there are schools where we have no walk zones at all, where we provide bus transportation for all students, and even at those schools, we still have long car rider rides lines, because for various reasons, parents choose not to put their kids on the bus. But when there are issues that do arise at a particular school, we will come out along with transportation staff, and sometimes we've involved the SRO and just have several set of eyes on the layout of the school to kind of get a number of how many kids are being dropped off and picked up in the morning and the afternoon, and try to work with the principals of those schools to see how we can adjust their drop-offs and pickups in the afternoon. I know the one that was in the chat, again, I referenced that earlier, is Wade Elementary School, which is located along a busy roadway on Smallwood Drive. So over the years, based upon different principles there, they've used both parking lots because the parking lots are separated there, and they've also doubled up traffic with drop-offs and pickups. So that's again an area, since there is multiple concerns about that, we can take a look at that and work with the administration there to see how we can maybe fine-tune their pickup and drop-offs.
Yeah, Justin, last thing on that, they just today, I believe, sent information out about the process that they're using there to help get those cars off of the road. And I do think it's where they're using both of those lots. So the bus lot on one side and I think the teacher parking on the other side. It looks like that's going to help, but I do know that information just went out to those families today.
And of course, with the elementary schools in the afternoon time, the school administration wants to make sure that it is a parent or someone who's on the emergency card picking up those child, because we just don't want an elementary age child getting in a car with anyone without someone from the school being able to identify who's in that car.
Thank you both. We do have exactly 5 minutes remaining. Ms. Mackey, are there any quick one-off questions that maybe we may be able to address? I also just dropped a link again in the chat. Whoops, I thought I did, for this presentation. Okay, there we go. Which will, of course, have the live links as well. So for anyone who's not familiar, Board Docs always contains any of our upcoming meetings, the agenda, presentations, et cetera, and CCBOE will contain our recorded sessions and lots of information. So is there anything you believe we may be able to answer quickly, Ms. Mackey? I don't want to, let me just add also, I don't want to discourage anyone whose question was not addressed. Please feel free to reach out to, whoever you think your question should be addressed to. And we're happy to make sure that it does get answered for you. Yes, ma'am.
I do want to share, this is more so of a question/comment, but I saw it in the chat and it was submitted in advance by someone who identified as a student. And it really was, can there be some kind of encouragement at the administrative level to school administrators to move away from an overall collective student body punishment, if you will, if, you have a handful of students who are, violating the code of student conduct, not demonstrating appropriate behavior. And the point was because, this can be discouraging for students. So I wanted to bring that up because I saw it in advance and then as well as the chat. Another question was about if somebody on here wanted to speak about the attendance notification calls, and that it would be helpful if my child is absent all day and I may be not aware as a parent, if I could be notified early in the morning versus late in the evening. And I do know there are, calls that do go out at certain points during the school day. Is there someone, maybe Mr. Lowndes, is that something you could touch on very quickly?
Yeah, so we do set the time, every day the same time, so people get used to that call going out. I will say that, if we send a couple calls out, we would have some parents asking us not to send so many calls out. Because so we do hear on that end too that, we're calling too much. So we don't try to do too many calls, but, we could make an adjustment. The problem is if a student skips later in the day, we wouldn't catch those students in the courses that they miss later in the day. So that's why we send it out later. So it hits the whole day as to whether the student was there the whole day or whether a student skipped in the afternoon. So that's why it's sent out at the end of the day. I can talk to Dr. Jones about possibly sending out 2 messages if that's something that everyone feels like is necessary.
And you're going to get feedback on that one if you send 2 messages to parents. They will come back to us and let us know that they love hearing from us, but not quite that much. So we're going to have to strike a balance.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, alternate. I don't know candidly what the solution is, but I can say the calls are quite aggressive. And if you hang up, they call right back. So I've experienced that. All right, we have 2 minutes remaining. I do see your hand, Ms. Smith. Just one moment, please. Dr. Navarro, any closing thoughts? And then I'll ask our board members if they'd like to share something very quickly.
Thank you for the engagement. I think we were close to almost 200 people at our best time. I agree with the board that virtual is great. Hopefully this format works for you because you can be doing anything that you need to be doing and hopefully engaging with us as well. Thank you for the feedback. I have a lot of notes and a lot of really awesome suggestions. Our community is awesome, and we just appreciate very much this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
I was actually just going to ask if there's a way that we can preserve the Q&A, the chat, so that perhaps we can post it alongside the slide deck once we're able to kind of get everything. I know we already have it up on board docs, but once everything is updated, being able to preserve the chat, and if there are any responses that we provided verbally, if there's a way to just quickly kind of sum it up for the question, just for those parents who weren't able to attend, if they'd like to peruse what was asked, what was addressed, in case this is helpful. And just wanted to quickly note on the calls to schools. I know that I typically get a call in the morning if my child is sick, that they've missed period 1 and 2. And then I have the end of day call saying they've missed the entire day. So I'm not sure if it's different by different grade bands, but just wanted to offer that.
Good point. It could be because in elementary, I typically get them at night in the evening. So I guess to allow those students who may be arriving late. But yeah, very good point for the older students. It may be different. Okay, Ms. Kramer, anything you'd like to add? We're going to go over by a couple minutes. Please bear with us. I just want to give our board members a final opportunity to share something quickly, please.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll be very brief. I just want to thank everyone again for attending. Thank you to the presenters from Parent Powered. Again, Ms. Chapelier Thomas, you and Ms. Paul for all of your work and community engagement, and looking forward to more of that. And thank you to our community, to our parents for attending. I know that, a Tuesday evening is very busy. I can totally relate. Sometimes I'm multitasking here as well. So just want to thank you all. I do agree that virtual seems to be, and we've seen some comments from parents as well, that thank you for this format. It's very helpful and increases accessibility for parents. And so we appreciate that feedback, and we need that feedback. So please continue to reach out to us, and looking forward to more collaborative discussions. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Any other board members? If you'd like to, were you about to say something, Ms. Butler Washington? Were you coming off mute?
Yes, I was. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say this was a great session, and thank you to our presenters. You presented very well. You expressed it what the board wanted to express, and you did a great job in doing that. So again, parents, we're here for you. We hear you. Reach out if there's anything else we can do to make sure that your student, as our chair says, she has customers into the schools. If we can do anything for them, just let us know. And we are a collective board that do listen, and we try to provide everything that see fit within our preview to make sure that we do our best for your students and for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Butler Washington. Any other board members? I see no hands raised going once, going twice.
Right here.
Oh, Dr. Smalls. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I just wanted to say, that this was wonderful. This is my first town hall meeting. It's a wonderful experience. I look forward to supporting the families, the teachers, the staff, everyone, and just I encourage you to keep moving, keep pushing. We're in this together, and we're here to support you. And breathe, have some self-care. I know it's a lot, but we are in it, and we have this. Have a great evening.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hancock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Verk. Thumbs up. Are you good? Nothing? Okay. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Thank you so much for joining us. I agree that I prefer the virtual. It's great to see you all in person, but just from a practical standpoint, for those that have commutes, that have multiple schedules, et cetera, the virtual has been working well, and candidly, we get more engagement and we get wonderful questions and comments. So very much appreciate it. For those who are interested, Tuesday, May the 6th at 7 p.m. will be our next town hall. I will confer with my colleagues, but it sounds like there is thank you, virtual is perfect. Sounds like there is a general consensus that this works well for most people. We welcome you to our next board meeting, which is actually next Tuesday, the 11th, beginning at 1 p.m. For the public meeting. And as always, CCBOE has any information that you may need. Thank you so much and have a good evening. Thank you again to our presenters and our staff. Good night, everyone.